Hello again, dear friends. It's always a little treat to sit down with you like this. I've got my tea, the mint one that's been steeping just long enough, and the house is quiet except for the clock ticking on the wall. You know that sound? It's comforting in its own way. Reminds me that time keeps moving forward, even when we feel stuck. Today I want to talk about something that still surprises me every time I see it happen. Second chances in love. Not just any second chance, the kind that comes after years of thinking that chapter is closed forever. After a divorce that felt like the end of the world. After losing a spouse you thought you'd grow old with. After telling yourself, quietly in the mirror, I'm done with all that. And then, life says, not quite yet. I've seen it so many times now, and every story reminds me how stubborn hope can be, how the heart, even after everything, still has room for one more beginning. Let me tell you about Clara first. Clara was 64 when her marriage of 37 years quietly fell apart. No big fight, no scandal, just two people who had grown in different directions. She moved into a small apartment near her daughter, started going to a weekly watercolor class at the community center because she always wanted to paint but never had time. She told me, I wasn't looking for love, I was looking for color. And then one Tuesday, a man sat down next to her at the easel. Daniel, 68, retired carpenter, widower of 4 years. He was terrible at painting. His flowers looked like blobs. But he laughed at himself so easily that everyone in the room felt lighter. After class, he asked her, "Would you mind showing me how you made that sky look so peaceful?" They started talking, first about brushes and pigments, then about grandchildren, then about the quiet nights that feel too long. 6 months later, they were painting together in her tiny living room, newspapers spread on the floor, laughing when paint got on their sleeves. A year after that, they were married in the same community center, just family, a few friends from class, and a small cake with too much frosting. Clara says now, I thought second chances were for younger people. Turns out they're for anyone brave enough to pick up a brush again. And it's not always art classes. I remember Harold, 71, big quiet man who lost his wife to Alzheimer's after caring for her at home for almost a decade. He started volunteering at the local animal shelter because he needed something to do with his hands. He walked dogs, cleaned kennels, sat with the scared ones until they stopped shaking. One afternoon, a woman came in looking for a cat that had run away from her yard. Sarah, 66, retired librarian, recently divorced after her husband left without much explanation. She was crying quietly while filling out the lost pet form. Harold brought her a cup of water and said, "They usually come back when they're ready. Give it time." She looked up, surprised anyone had noticed her tears. They started talking, first about cats, then about how empty a house feels without someone to talk to at dinner, then about how hard it is to trust again after betrayal or long illness. Months later, they adopted 2 cats together, one from her lost list, one from his shelter. Now they sit on the porch every evening, cats on their laps, reading the same book aloud to each other. Harold told me, I thought my caring days were over. Turns out I just needed someone to care for, and someone who'd care right back. You know, what touches me most about these second chance stories is how gentle they are. There's no rush, no pressure to prove anything, no need to look perfect or act young. People show up with their history written all over them. The laugh lines, the careful way they walk, the stories they carry in their eyes. And somehow, someone else looks at all of that and says, "I'd like to know more." And that's when trust starts rebuilding, slowly, one shared coffee at a time, one honest conversation about the past at a time, one quiet evening where neither of you has to pretend everything is fine. I think of Evelyn and Paul. Evelyn was 69, widowed for 6 years. Paul was 72, divorced for 4. They met at a grief support group, not looking for romance, just looking for someone who understood the shape of loneliness. They sat next to each other every week for months. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they just listened. One evening after the group, Paul walked her to her car and said, "I don't know if this is allowed, but would you like to get a cup of tea sometime? Just to talk more?" She hesitated. Trust had been broken for her long before her husband died. But she said yes. They met for tea, then for walks, then for dinners at her place, simple meals, nothing fancy. It took almost a year before either of them said the word love. But when they did, it felt earned, solid. They married quietly in a small garden with only their children and closest friends. Evelyn says, "Second chances aren't about forgetting the first one. They're about remembering you're still allowed to be happy." And then there's the story of Beatrice and Leonard. Beatrice, 66, had been divorced for nearly 20 years. Her ex-husband had been controlling, critical, left her doubting her own worth. She never dated again. Leonard, 70, had lost his wife suddenly to a heart attack. He joined a local history walking group because he loved old buildings and needed company. Beatrice joined for the same reason. They ended up in the same small group week after week. Leonard always asked the guide thoughtful questions. Beatrice always listened carefully. One day, the group stopped at an old church, and Leonard pointed out a stained glass window and said quietly to Beatrice, "It's beautiful how light can come through broken pieces and still make something whole." She looked at him, really looked, and felt something shift. They started sitting together on the walks, then meeting for coffee afterward, then sharing books about local history. When Leonard finally asked her to dinner, Beatrice said, "I'm scared. I've been hurt before." He answered, "I know. I've been broken too. We can take it slow as you need." They've been married 3 years now. Beatrice says, "I thought trust was something you lost forever. Turns out you can rebuild it, one honest step at a time." So many stories like this. I could fill a whole afternoon. The couple who reconnected at a high school reunion after 45 years apart. The man who met his partner while waiting in line at the pharmacy, both picking up heart medication and laughing about how life comes full circle. The woman who found love again at a grief retreat. They bonded over shared tears and then shared laughter. What I want you to carry with you today is this. Second chances are not a reward for being perfect. They're a gift for being willing. Willing to show up. Willing to be seen, scars and all. Willing to trust just one more time, even when every part of you says, don't. Because the heart remembers how to heal. And when two hearts decide to try again, something very beautiful can happen. Let me ask you something gently. Have you ever given yourself permission to hope again, even a tiny bit? Have you ever felt that quiet pull, that little whisper that says, maybe it's not too late? Have you ever had a moment where someone's kindness made you think, I could let someone in again. Write it in the comments, even just one sentence. I smiled at someone today, and it felt good. Or, I'm scared, but I'm starting to hope. I read every word, and they keep me going. If this conversation warmed even a small corner of your heart, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe so we can keep meeting like this every week. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next story. I'm so grateful you're here with me. Take good care of your tender hearts. They've carried you this far, and they still have so much love left to give. Until next time, I'll be right here with tea and an open heart.